Hello and welcome to the Modesta Mahiga 360 Leadership Podcast. So thrilled to have you join us on this incredible episode. Oh, I cannot wait. In a minute, I'll introduce you to our guests today. But guess what the topic is? Why more pay does not mean more wealth. And just saying that is going to have somebody who really feels like I need more pay. That person's probably thinking, but that's it. You know what? Give me more pay and I will tell you. I'll show you how I can convert it. And the conversation today is going to be about the fact that it doesn't necessarily translate to that. My guest today is Samwel Ndandala. He's a growth mindset leader with over 13 years of experience in finance, reporting, local and international tax, as well as transfer pricing. He has advised a number of multinational banks in Africa and Europe on finance, strategy, and taxation. Samwel has been a member of the Tanzanian's finance minister's think tank, advising him on fiscal policy matters. He's also addressed the budgetary committee of the Parliament of the United Republic of Tanzania. Samwel also regularly produces thought leadership materials and publications. An effective communicator, he's delivered numerous technical trainings and talks in professional and business associations, including the ACCA UK, CPA Tanzania, CEO Roundtable Tanzania, South African, American, British, and European Union business groups in Tanzania. Samwel holds a master's from the School of Oriental and African Studies from the University of London and a bachelor degree in finance from Mzumba University in Tanzania. He is a member of the Chartered Certified Accountants UK and Certified Public Accountant CPA Tanzania. Ladies and gentlemen of the 360 Leadership Community, let's welcome Samwel Ndandala. Samwel, you've been sharing great wisdom on personal finance online. But I know this isn't your day job. What's made you so passionate about helping and challenging others with their personal finance?
Yeah, so just a personal story here.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a boarding school for my primary education. I think I was 10 or 11, and the school was in Moshi,
Mm-hmm.
sort of northern Tanzania. And I remember my mom coming to pick me up from school for the holidays. And obviously, coming from what you would classify lower middle class family, there wasn't a total lack of everything, but there was scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, my mom came. She picked me up, and we got on a bus. And I think at that time the fare, if I remember correctly, the fare from Moshi to Dar es Salaam, which is the capital of Tanzania, was around 5,000 shillings, and she'd carried, I think, 10,000 for the both of us, and an extra 10,000 to eat something along the way. We would stop in those days in Korogwe or Tanga and get like chicken, some snacks and stuff like that. And we get to the bus stop, and the prices of the fare were double the price.
Man.
And at that time we didn't have any phones or any communication, so we could only manage a ticket for the both of us, but we couldn't manage to eat anything for 8 hours. And as a young boy, I remember this vividly because my mom sat me down and said, "Look, Sam, my son, I know you're tired and you're excited and you want to eat, and it's holiday. As a child, you're looking forward to enjoying the candies and everything." And she says, "Look, the fares have gone up. We only have money to get on a bus. You're just gonna have to bear with me for the next 8 hours. You're not gonna eat anything. You're not gonna drink anything, and we're gonna get home, right?" And I remember vividly thinking to myself, "Oh my God, this is what happens when you don't have enough money, right?" And my thinking at that time was, I should never be in this position again. Obviously, my mom was the one who struggled more because she couldn't provide for her son, and I could see the sadness on her face. I could see how she felt very disappointed. But I think it has been that point in my life where I thought, oh, you really need to manage your money well. You really need to budget, because if you don't, there will be circumstances that will put you in a spot where you're just not going to be comfortable. And I suppose from then on, I've always been the guy who friends come to for personal finance advice, and if they have a little bit of money and they don't want to spend it, they'll give it to me, and then I become the family accountant and family treasurer, and everywhere I've been, I've kind of been the guy who holds and keeps the purse. But my day job has a lot to do with finance, but not personal.
Mm-hmm,
So I am a tax advisor. I'm a finance advisor. I'm a structuring and corporate finance advisor. And I enjoy doing that. It's complicated. It's interesting. It's fascinating. You get to make an impact. You get to train people. But what I've seen over the years is that a lot of people can be very good at what they do.
mm-hmm,
A lot of leaders, we're talking to leaders,
mm-hmm.
can be very good at what they do. They lead, they encourage, they motivate people, but that doesn't necessarily translate into good stewardship of their personal finances.
Mm.
And you see executives and corporate leaders and entrepreneurs sometimes, not for the lack of generating revenue, but just for the lack of skills in managing their personal finance, and they struggle. And you see, when you struggle with personal finances, it kind of seeps into other areas of your life.
Yeah.
Your relationships also get to struggle, your relationship with friends, home, and everything in a way hinges on your ability to manage this important resource called money, so that you're able to live comfortably and relate with people. So that's why I'm quite passionate about it. I think it's very important, but I also think it's not something that has been taught and paid as much attention as it should be in schools and curriculum. So kids have to learn these things the hard way as adults,
Mm.
whilst you could empower them and equip them with those skills when they're still young.
Wow. So Sam, I kind of prepped myself for this episode, and then now I'm undone, and I'm all over the place. So here I am live recording, and one part of me is gathering myself, another part of me is trying to see what to
Mm,
ask next. But so I relate to that,
mm,
and what you're saying is this is not taught. This is so many people's stories.
mm,
Yet I recently saw that Zambia really
mm,
put personal finance as a separate subject. I think developed a curriculum. Now it's a subject that's being taught from elementary level, primary
mm,
school.
mm,
Um, and many people are learning it late, if at all. If they will at all have the
mm.
humility, especially people in finance and accounting and economics, I'd be like, I know these things. No, you don't.
Yeah,
You're floundering in your life. Um,
absolutely not. I mean, if they did, we wouldn't have all these crises around.
right? And we,
Yeah.
we we live in crisis mode. So
Mm,
you're sharing your story, and then sharing where your passion came from, and the fact that you know you're known for this, and you really want to help out people with this.
mm,
The title of what we're talking about today is that more money does not necessarily mean more wealth.
mm,
So what does it take, right? And because
mm,
I've also heard of people who earn less and are able to do more, whether it's build or education or healthcare or whatever, and there are people who earn more
mm,
and they live paycheck to paycheck, like that money doesn't
mm,
come in, and all of a
mm,
sudden it shows in their lives.
mm,
So what
mm.
does it take then? What does it
Yeah.
take for us to be good financial stewards, and what did you
Yeah.
mean for that to be taught?
Yeah. I mean, so I think you're bang on the money there in terms of it needing to be taught,
Mm,
and perhaps it being needed to be seen, lived, as a child. I think some things are taught and some things are absorbed in a
wow.
very tacit way, and I've found that those friends, colleagues, and acquaintances of mine who had the power of example, the power of
Mm,
parents sitting down and talking about finances and talking about budgets and talking about investing from the young age. I find that those lessons, they don't have to be proper curriculums, but those lessons sink in
mm,
and help along the way. But equally important to remember is that earnings do not necessarily translate into wealth. One interesting statistic that I keep going back to
mm,
is that you are in the States. In the States, only 15% of millionaires hold senior leadership roles.
mm,
Only 15%. So if you for every 100 millionaires,
mm.
85 of them are not at the C-suite level.
Wow.
They're not even sort of higher management. They're usual everyday people, teachers, accountants,
Wow.
mechanics, engineers. Those are the people who generate wealth and keep the wealth. Um,
Mm,
so 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 it's true that earnings do not necessarily translate into wealth, especially wealth that sticks.
mm.
We're talking about intergenerational wealth, where somebody leaves behind not just a legacy of wisdom and character and training, but also a legacy of wealth for the next generation.
Yes.
And I think it takes understanding and personalizing what wealth means for people, and to me, um, it took me a while to figure out what I wanted for my life, what I defined wealth to be. And to
Mm,
me, wealth is just freedom, right? It's freedom to
mm.
do what I want without being encumbered by financial limitations. And there are
Yeah.
scales to it, right? So
Mm,
it's freedom from want, just regular wants. It's freedom from having to do a job that you don't necessarily enjoy or find satisfying. It's also freedom
mm,
from associating with people that you don't necessarily enjoy associating with, and all of that comes with a degree of wealth generation.
mm.
And the truth of the matter is wealth is what is left that is not spent. So, whatever the number it is that you're generating, wealth is only that which is left after you've spent it all.
That's messed up,
And
Samuel. Ooh, okay.
right,
Continue. I really just lean in on that. It's so
yeah,
it's not what money you have at your disposal and what you're spending it on. It's what's left after you've done all of that.
yeah. In fact, everything that you see is money that has been spent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, we've got our metrics wrong. We
Goodness.
seem to think that wealthy people are those with big houses, big cars, big this, big fashion designer clothes, handbags, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually not wealth. Wealth is what is left after they've spent money on those things. Now it's all relative, right? If you have a lot of money coming in and then you spend quite a bit of it, then you still have wealth. So it depends with what one looks at it. But here's another interesting way I tend to think of about wealth. The only thing that you can't really buy is time, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
only thing you can really get back. You can't buy back. And I've formulated this idea and I borrowed it from Buckminster Fuller. And
Mm-hmm.
Buckminster Fuller said, wealth is the amount of days, weeks, months, or years you can go without actively working and still be comfortable at the same lifestyle. So, in other words, if I got $1,000 in my bank and I only spend $1,000 a month, my wealth is literally 1 month, right?
Oh my
If
word.
I'm earning $1 million a year
Mm.
and I'm spending $1 million a year, my wealth is zero,
Yeah.
right? So the issue is, how much do you have now that you have accumulated that can keep you going without you having to work
For money.
actively,
Yeah.
and the higher that number is, some people's number is infinity because they're generating money faster than they're able to spend. That's great. Or they are spending less and less money than they are generating. That's even better. So it's a denominator numerator thing, and a lot of times we focus a lot on how much that is spent and has been spent, and these things that we're showing off. And unfortunately, we have social media and we have friends, so it's a very silent competition to show off who's got the most. But really, personal finance is personal, so only you know how much wealth you've got.
I don't know what to do with this podcast. Like, I wish I wasn't the host. I'm struggling here. Oh my goodness. Which
Yeah.
is why, like you said, it's the accountants, it's the engineers, it's the plumbers, it's the teachers. The people who are wealthy, you may not be able to see it on them.
Absolutely, absolutely. They're not flashy. They don't have the latest cars. They're not. I'm not saying that they haven't learned to live life.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not what I'm saying. But they're very clear on their priorities, right?
Mm.
They know what is valuable to them, and they're focused on that, and they're focused on keeping that wealth going as opposed to showing off. And there's something to be said about these vocations that are quite mechanical and patient. So you see, teachers, engineers, they also appreciate that there are laws and there's a process to getting somewhere. There are stages. Engineers know that there's foundation, there's building, there's roofing, and that takes time. Here's another interesting fact. An average millionaire is 57 years old.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, so if I'm talking to a millennial, everyone wants to be a millionaire, and I'm not saying we can't, but I'm saying it takes time, especially that legal wealth that sticks takes
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
um, and we are sold this lie, this fallacy that it's got to be quick. You've got to get it today. You've got to get it tomorrow. But anyone who's built a career, who's built a business, who's built a family, who's built a relationship, knows, who's built an organization as leaders, that it takes decades, it takes time. And we've forgotten that process of generating wealth also takes time. Now, if you think about it, somebody who's 50, and if that's an average, that means a lot of people are older than that. Few are younger than that, but a lot of people are older than that. But if you think about it, how many people in their 30s or 40s feel like they are late, or they somehow they're losers because they haven't quite hit those numbers. But it just takes compounding, it takes time, it's a process. It takes daily habits of those wealth creation mannerisms that get you there in the end. So I suppose that's also the good news, that with the right mindset, with the right thinking, with some discipline, um, almost everyone can generate wealth as long as they are able to create some income.
So that's definitely the silver lining. When I
Yeah.
everything you said thus far, I needed a silver lining, and I think you brought me back. You've thrown me a bit of rope here. So it's mindset, and
Yeah.
um, it's so interesting. You talking about the things that we didn't learn as kids. Many of us have to learn, and for those that are even willing to learn in adulthood,
Mm,
many of us actually just repeating the same cycle, and our kids have to
mm,
figure it out as well.
mm,
Um,
mm,
but Dave Ramsey, who is known out here as a personal finance guru, especially helping families, American families get out of debt, and American
mm,
families are highly indebted. Being in debt is how people maintain their lifestyle in the U.S.
mm. Yeah.
And he says that personal finance is 80% mindset and
Mm,
20% skill set. And when
mm,
when I asked earlier, so is this something that should be taught? And I made reference to Zambia, and you said, you know
mm,
what? It can also be caught. This can be
mm,
something that people are exposed to. But
mm,
it takes mindset to think in a certain way, to behave in a certain way, and see the
mm,
value of imparting
mm,
that on future
mm,
generations. Um,
mm.
without going too much into, I don't know, social psychology and anthropology,
Mm,
what are we missing in
mm,
our societies that then we're
mm,
missing the importance of building wealth, which you have defined so beautifully? It's really freedom of time and how
mm,
long you can go without having to actively work for money, right?
mm,
Just being free to
mm,
live the life that you want, without
mm,
pressures that I'm going to limit myself because I need the money, and also
mm,
being free to not even work if you choose not to, and there's still
mm,
money that you have
mm.
access to.
Yeah.
Why is this a challenge? Why do the majority, do you think, not have this mindset?
Yeah. Well, first of all, um, I think Dave Ramsey is absolutely correct in this. I mean, one can argue, is it 20% or 80%? Is it 79-21, or is it 1585? But really, um, behavior is more powerful than knowledge. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, it's not just personal finance; it's
Mm,
personal health.
mm,
Is more about behavior than head knowledge.
mm,
Relationships, leadership is more about behavior than it is about knowledge. One of the one of the cliches that I think are absolutely wrong is, if I knew better, I would do better. I mean,
mm.
Paul talks about the things that I want to do, I don't
I
do,
don't.
and the things I know I should do, I'm not doing. The things I don't want to do, I keep finding myself in a situation, I keep doing them.
Mm,
So there is that transition between knowledge and permanent action, not just action,
mm,
consistent,
mm,
permanent action.
mm.
uh, is, I think that's where it's at, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes pain to get that transition. You're lucky if you come from a family. There was a time I was working in South Africa,
Mm,
and I went to an annual general meeting of this company, and the majority shareholders, I think, were Jewish. It was a Jewish family, just judging from the attire, let's
mm,
say, what they were wearing,
mm,
and what was interesting was that family, obviously the head of the family was the shareholder, but that family had the entire family, and I mean everyone in the family, including the kids,
mm,
and every one of them was seated first row. They're reading the prospectus, they're reading the earnings report, they're reading the currency movement,
mm,
the rand against the dollar.
mm.
And I'm talking about primary school level children
Wow.
who are going into an annual general meeting of a company that their grandfather is owning, right?
Wow.
Now, it's very hard to beat that, because by the time this kid is a teenager,
Yeah.
not only do they have the head knowledge, but they have the mindset of a wealth creator, right?
Yes.
And I think that is lost, particularly this part of the world where finances are a taboo subject.
Mm,
My father is a pastor,
mm,
and we talk about uh, everything really when we sit for dinner at home. But I once challenged him. I said, "Look, you preach to us all the time, but we've never, as a family, sat down to talk about finances. How are we doing?
mm,
Are we in debt?
mm,
What's our budget?
mm,
What's our projection? What's your retirement plan?
mm,
Are these things that you talk on a regular basis with your spouse, with your children,
mm,
with your family?
mm,
Because often you find that those who are doing relatively well are keeping that information from the rest of the people who are not doing very well. And therefore, everyone has to start from scratch because we're not sharing this information. Or maybe sometimes we're very suspicious about this information. But once you appreciate it, then you are where you are. I think that's where everybody starts with their own personal finance journey.
yeah.
And then now once you start understanding that you need to create these habits, then you almost need to think, okay, so what are the steps that I need to start taking uh, to reform myself to become a person who actually retains some of the wealth from the income that I generate.
Mm,
And I'll also point out one issue here, and I don't want to call it peer pressure or societal pressure.
mm,
Maybe let me use an illustration, right? Some months back, this last I think Ramadan, some friends. I got a call from a friend, and they were at I think they were at Serena at the time, and they were having iftar. You know, we're friends. Tanzanian culture is very much, you know, welcoming, and people are breaking the fast and say, hey Sam, you want to come over? It's a bunch of us, it's friends, let's just have some dinner here at Serena. I said, okay, yeah, I'm sure I'm gonna come.
mm,
And I get there, and it's 10 friends, and they're having a good time, and it's iftar, and it's a buffet, it's Serena Hotel,
mhm,
right? And I ask, and I say, look guys, how much is the iftar? It's a buffet. How much is it? And they say, I think it was 135,000
per person.
shillings per person.
Hmm.
And I thought to myself, I really am not that hungry,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Right. I'm really not that hungry. I'm just gonna have a cup of tea
mm,
because I'm here for the company.
yeah,
And it became a big issue because why am I not supporting people who are having a good time?
mm,
I'm becoming a party pooper.
mm,
And I tell everybody, look, guys, I'm having a good time with you. I'm just gonna have a cup of coffee,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it became a real thing for 2 hours. Everybody was, you know, debating it, but after a while they got used to it, and then it's still a story we talk about. But I bring this example to illustrate that
mm,
it's not that I didn't have 135,000 in my pocket or
mm,
in my bank account, but it's just that I didn't budget for it.
yeah,
Like I wasn't gonna spend that money
yeah,
if I was gonna go there alone. So money keeps leaking out of our pockets.
yeah,
This you know it's not it's the small leaks that sink a boat, right?
yeah,
It's not this big massive expenses, but it's this small pressures that we have to conform and partake in these social events or social gathering or social commitments
yeah,
that at the end of the month you think to yourself, oh my god, I don't have anything left because I've spent it all.
yeah,
So again, it's having a bit of a refined understanding of where you are, where your plans are taking you, what you want for yourself, so that you can resist some of the pressures that come along your way.
this is so good. So, so good. It really does take vision, and it takes, values. And like you
Mm,
said, it's not just the action, it's the
mm.
consistent action that
Yeah,
you make permanent
yeah,
will
yeah.
make a difference. And throughout our conversation right now, I hear you making this a generational concern.
Mm,
It's not even about you, the leader, and how well you're faring. It's just
mm,
nobody lives here just for themselves. Most of the
mm,
leaders are probably listening here. If not,
mm,
in a marriage with children, they have
mm.
extended family responsibilities.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when that is paramount in mind, you're going to look at life differently. Like you looked at that
Mm,
135,000 differently. You're going to look at
mm,
your decisions differently. Um,
mm,
and I think it really does need to get to a place where that vision and that future,
mm.
a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
future is a lot
Mm,
more appealing to you than instant gratification
yeah.
or your reputation
Mm,
in the present. Uh,
yeah.
I I was in a terrible situation a couple of years ago where those prayers that you pray ushering in a new year. I think I'm
Mm,
just too raw and too open for the average person. Ah, well, probably why I'm an entrepreneur. I get to say what I want when I want, and
yeah.
I'm praying for wealth, and I'm praying, and I mean financial increase, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Holy Spirit says, "For what?" I'm like, like you do not know my life, and what me. And I'm like, what do you mean? Of all people, this is not like a friend I speak to, even a close friend that I marvel. Hey, what didn't I tell you? No, this you are God. I said, for what? He said, that which you have, Modesta, you don't steward well.
Mhm.
Why would I
Mm.
give you more? I was so
Mhm.
shocked. And he said, and how's my kingdom going to benefit? I'm like,
Mm.
I tithe, I offer, like
Mm.
what is so
Mm.
I did Dave Ramsey on my own. And
Mm.
again, when I shared it with my husband, let's do this. He goes, no, I know about finance. But anyway, so I went out and I did it by myself. And then later we were looking at, what would it take to buy a house
Mm.
in the US?
Mm.
And in conversation, a lot of the people, and not just Africans who'd emigrated, but also Asian, different people that we knew, and American, let's say white people being here generationally, and they're American because we're all
Mhm.
immigrants in America, and,
Mhm.
and people were making reference to this course. So I went
Mhm.
back. I said, "Baby, guess what? So many families. I've actually gone through Dave Ramsey's Baby Steps in Financial Peace University, and
Mhm.
gotten themselves to a place where, in no time, they're buying and they're doing things debt free." And he finally, agreed to some of the lessons that I've learned. And you said
Mm.
this is not just about personal finance. This is about any area of your life where you now want to be intentional about
Mm.
thriving in. Is
Mm.
as leaders,
Mm.
we may be technically good at what we know, and we may have climbed up the ranks, right,
Mm.
to where
Yeah.
we are right now. But
Mm.
we exist, and this is what I often say, in a 360 reality. Your spiritual, financial, health. You mentioned this before.
Mm.
Relational. All of these aspects of your life, they impact how well you lead and
Mhm.
how lasting your leadership impact and legacy will be.
Mhm.
And so I have personally had to
Mm.
go back to other areas that, if I did not learn and steward
Mm.
well, would compromise all the good work that I want to do on this earth, and I want to make a difference.
Mhm.
So this is getting counselors for things you've been through, working on your
Mhm.
personal finance,
Mm.
improving in certain areas. The things that, as an entrepreneur, you're like, we'll do this in-house. No, you put a budget for a
Mm.
professional,
Mm. Mm.
so that you can truly have a strong foundation and be able to build from there.
Mm.
Now, a leader listening to us, Samuel,
Mm.
they're they're probably rattled at this point.
Mhm. Yeah.
They knew what was, they knew, like you said, you alone know where you stand.
Mm.
So they're probably taking stock of their life right now, and they're rattled. That
Mm.
it's not about the job and how much you bring in, but it's really, who are you, where are you going, how much does
Mm.
that matter to you, and how ready are you to build to get there.
Mm. Mm.
So somebody listening in right now, what would you then say are the steps to take
Mm.
uh, to do things differently,
Mm.
so that they can then build wealth?
Mm. Yeah, man, there's just so much in your question, right? I mean,
Yeah, that was a little loaded.
you you're a phenomenal interviewer, because even the build up to your question has a lot of things to unpack. And if you allow me
Please
to
do.
just spend a few moments before answering that,
Please do.
I think, first of all, the fact that you you are humble enough, Modesta Mahiga, accomplished woman, professional, entrepreneur. The fact that you're humble enough to seek help, to get coaches and counselors, you
Mm,
being a coach and counselor and mentor and motivator yourself,
mm,
is quite profound to me. And it reminds me of, I think, a quote. Um, I don't remember who wrote it, but it goes like, the fittest athletes have coaches, right?
mm, mm,
They sometimes they have coaches who are less fit than they are,
mm,
right? If you
mm,
think about the Ronaldos of this world, the King Jameses of this world,
mm,
they invest so much in coaching and conditioning and recovery,
mm,
not because they're not fit, but
mm,
they know they need the coaching, to get even fitter, to perform.
Yeah.
They need the help, right? And often we get into situations where we find help, we find coaches, we find counselors when things are really bad,
Mm.
right? But
Mm.
we all know that the best time to go do a medical checkup is when you look healthy, right?
Right.
That's when you go check yourself. The best time to go see a marriage counselor is when things are good, because then you don't have too much to fix. The best time to eat well is to eat well when you're healthy, right? You don't wait until things, especially as a leader, you don't wait until things are so bad. That's when you get help. So generally, I think as leaders, to be able to perform at peak condition, you really need an army of people who can help you. An ecosystem of people who can help and support you in different areas,
Yeah.
whether that's spiritual, financial, physical, relational, and social, right?
Yeah.
And then also life is, in a lot of ways, I'm learning that life is somewhat indivisible, right? You
Mm.
can't be struggling with your health and perform, beyond 100% at work or
Yep.
with your family.
Yeah.
You can't be struggling with finances and show up to your job or to the people you lead and perform well. One has to look at life in its totality and see that these different components must come together for one to be able to make that impact that we all seek to make as leaders. And then the third thing is that, let's face it, it's not impossible, but it's really hard to leave a legacy when you're struggling financially,
Yeah.
right? God is gonna use us, but He's gonna use us through resources,
Mm.
and we have to be able to steward those resources well.
Mm.
And in some ways, God is not going to trust us with more if we don't show that we have the spirit to steward the little that we have,
Yeah.
however way you define little. Those who are faithful with the few will be trusted with the many.
Yeah.
And as leaders, as people who want to make an impact, as people who want to lift, people who want to lift others, I think it's important to remember that if we don't take care of our finances, either we'll be very uncomfortable or we will be compromised, because it can get to a point where you're struggling so much financially that your values are on the line,
Yeah.
and we're human. So that's a very, it's not just me being comfortable as a leader, it's not just being able to afford a good house, a good car, good school for my children. It's really tied to my ability to influence and impact and leave a legacy.
Yeah.
This financial stewardship is some serious stuff, right?
Yep.
Now, so if there's someone struggling, or someone feeling like they are not where they are, or they're not where they should be, sorry,
Mm.
I think the first, I do a course on personal finance, and
Yes.
the first thing I always say to people I coach is, you have to take 100% responsibility, and part of that is being crystal clear about where you are. There is such a thing as financial denial,
Mm.
and it's everywhere. We often want to fit in,
Mm.
and everybody's trying to fit in without knowing how they fit in. And if you're not careful, you can live a life of financial denial. So take a really honest look at your finances,
Mm.
and have a sense of where your net worth is. Where are all my assets?
Mm.
How are they performing? Where are all my liabilities? Am I happy with it?
Mm. Mm.
That's gonna take a while, especially for someone who hasn't looked at their finances in a long time. And this is another trick: just look at your finances at least once a month. so it reminds you where you are. So that's step number one. You got to have a really clear picture of where you are. And
Mm.
this is not some imaginary wealth. It's not an imaginary deal that is coming that you've already assumed it's yours and it's in your bank account. It's not, an
Why do
imaginary.
you keep doing this? Stop it. As a consultant,
This-
I refuse for you to go down this line of the. Okay, continue, continue.
you know it's not a grant, a loan, a deal that is coming that
Mm.
you've already pocketed in your, and you pocketed in your mind, that you live as if you already have it, right? And you're talking to suppliers as if you already closed the deal, right? So
Man, yeah.
um I think that's number one. Just be super real.
Yeah.
Um the founder of Bridgewater talks about hyper realism. Just
Mm.
and realism is not a limitation of ambition. It's just
Yeah.
an understanding of where one is,
Yes.
and then that gives you a very good foundation. And
Mm.
then I would say the second thing is, we're talking about behavior. We're talking about mindset, right?
Mm.
Um, I'm a firm believer in how do I put it? I'm a firm believer in dreaming big
Mm-hmm.
but aiming low. It must be Jordan Peterson who said part of the problem with modern life is that people don't aim low enough. And what he meant by that is that when you're trying to create habits, when you're trying to create change,
Mm.
we often underestimate the importance of small steps.
Mm. Mm.
Let me put it in another way. I ran a marathon,
Mm.
I think 3 or 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Congratulations, by the way.
thank you, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 years before that, I couldn't run, 5Ks.
Mm.
And I remember reading this book about running, and the book said, look, the first week, just buy shoes,
Mm.
wear your shoes, walk around the block,
Mm.
come back, take your shoes off, take a shower, you've done what you needed to do.
Oh, wow.
Because what you're doing is you're reprogramming your mind. So if I got the shoes and then I tried to run half a marathon that same day, I'll
Mm.
come back sick, broken, probably injured, and I wouldn't run again.
Mm.
So the reason I say aim low is just do something that you would do. It wouldn't hurt so much, but it would not be reversible. It's something that you're making a permanent change. So
Mm.
instead of going full blown out, and let's say you have not saved $1 in your life, you've always spent more than you earn, you're in debt.
Mm.
Instead of saying, look, I'm next morning, I've heard a podcast and I'm gonna save 80% of my money. It's just not gonna work. Why don't you
Mm.
just start with 1%,
Mm.
5%, 10% maybe? Because then you're making those daily steps. So
Yeah.
this idea of aiming low and compounding those gains, it
Yeah.
will literally astound someone who's listening and they want to make a change, as opposed to making this grand big. I mean, of course, the destination is this grand big place, but
Mm.
it's the small steps and everyday conscious steps that you take. In a way, you're rewiring, you're evolving in your mindset about finances. So I think, to me, those are we can break them down, but those are the two main issues. Now, obviously, after that, you've done financial peace. You know, you have to part of being real is learning how to budget.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think of budget as constraints, as this mechanical thing. Really, a budget is just, putting demarcations of where you're free. Once
Mm.
you've budgeted, then you're free to spend that money. You don't have to think very much. Imagine just spending money and you don't know where it went, and then you come back. Because another thing with money is that they call it currency. It flows. It will flow. whether
Mm,
you want it or not. You can decide where it's going to flow, but it's gonna flow anyway. It's
mm,
the energy of money. It's gonna move. It's gonna get spent. So this idea that you're a good steward, budgeting is really just putting demarcations, putting limitations, and telling yourself, you need to behave somewhere. You
mm,
have a goal in mind. You can only spend this far. And
mm,
then once that is, especially if you have an accountability partner, once that is set, it's almost automatic. Whenever the income is much higher than the expenditure, that gives you freedom to spend, to invest. That gives you freedom to start compounding the grains, and then
mm.
that is you creating the financial freedom and peace that you're looking for. It's really simple, but like I said, it's small steps that one has to take.
And so much of what you said is so, but mindset again. When you said budgeting is putting demarcations where you are free, so
Mm,
you're saying, as with life in general,
mm,
I could say I have free agency. I'm a free person, but I've
mm,
decided through my vision and my values, right? I've
mm,
decided,
mm,
given who I am and what God put me on earth to do, how
mm,
far my freedom goes,
mm,
right? Like,
mm. Yeah,
yes, I am free,
yeah,
but there are things I won't do, not because I'm
yeah,
not free to, but
yeah.
because of who I've decided I am and where I'm going, and what it takes for me to get there. And
You're,
I
yeah.
go ahead, go
You're
ahead.
only, you're only free if you're going nowhere.
Uh,
Like let's imagine playing a game.
yeah,
What makes winning is because there are constraints. Imagine playing any game, pick a game, basketball,
yeah,
football, chess, whatever game. Just say we're playing this game, and the rules of the game are there are no rules. That's not a game.
it's not a game.
A game has to have rules, and this game of life called purpose,
Yeah,
vision,
yeah,
anytime you have a destination, anytime you have a vision, there must be rules,
yeah.
right? You can't just do anything. You can't just be with anyone. You can't just spend money the way you want. It's not because you've lost your agency,
Mm,
it's because it's better to constrain yourself so that you concentrate your energy, and money is just one form of that energy to get
mhm,
you where you want to go. so
yeah,
so so I think when you're maybe younger, naive and uninformed, you fetishize the idea of freedom. I can do whatever I want.
mm, mm,
but
mm.
but actually, the higher your calling, the bigger your purpose, the more restricted you will be with what you can do with your time, and with your resources.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of life. So again, it's a mindset thing, saying, actually, it is very freeing for me to constrain myself so that I don't have to worry about a thousand different options. Once, I think it's Joe Biden who said this. I mean, show your budget. Don't show me what your priorities are. Just show me your budget. If you just gave me your budget,
Mm,
I will know what you care about, right? So a budget is really a representation of your priorities. This is what I care about. This is where I'm going to spend my money. Where your heart is, that's where your treasure is, right?
so good.
Yeah.
Um, you've done something. I mean, starting with me, and I this carries through. I know people can hear it. I know this is going to go right to the heart of who they are and where they want to go, and the struggles. When when you said when you're young and and uninformed and naive, there are people who are old, naive and uninformed, or and not because of
Mm,
just the innocence of childhood, but
mm,
because of the hard-headedness
mm,
and the pride, right, of
mm,
adulthood.
mm,
But I know this conversation we're having, it's suddenly struck me at the heart.
mm,
A few days ago, my daughter wanted slime, or I don't know, she wanted something, and she said, because they decided they're combining their allowance to get uh, a Nintendo Switch. And I'm like, I don't
mm,
even know if I want you guys to get a Nintendo Switch. I feel like you're going to be distracted, la la. So they're
mm,
saving for that. They're like, Nintendo Switch or a puppy, mommy. And then
mm,
when she mentioned this slime that she wanted, she goes, don't take it from my allowance, mommy. Take it from my life savings. so,
Cool.
so first of all, like, okay, first of all, your life, you're gonna buy slime with your life. But secondly, the way
Mm,
she said life savings, I don't know
mm.
what idea my daughter has of what we have for the ooh, like the blood drained. The way that child put out that word, my life savings. Like her entire life in her head is set.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
rather than shrinking or looking to have a conversation with her to manage that, I
Mm,
wanted us to grow so that she
mm,
could say it with that confidence, because
mm,
that is what her and her sister have.
mm,
So that
mm,
conversation, and then today, what you said, that look, wealth is what you have left over.
mm,
Because we're accumulating, we're doing this thing because we think, more money, of with more money I can afford to spend, I think is what we think.
mm. Yeah,
Right? So I
yeah.
want the promotion. I want to make the, because with more money I can afford to spend,
Mm,
for whatever reason we want the more things. Not that it's bad,
mm,
but many of us just feel like if we had more, we will get more.
mm-hmm.
When
Yeah.
actually the idea isn't really about getting; it's
Mm,
stewarding, so
yeah,
that there is freedom generationally.
yeah.
To just fulfill God's purpose, to do what you want to do, to enjoy your life without
Mm,
worrying about, oh, but I
mm,
gotta clock in because I need the
mm.
money.
Yeah, yeah.
So you've messed me up in a proper way, and that combined with my little confident, just take it from my life savings, like "Shika kadiapa," just "Tozo kadiapa,"
She's a trust fund baby. She knows she's good.
Oh wow, that is really impressed on me as a leader
Yeah.
who I'm not just in a position of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I have accepted the call of leadership,
Mm-hmm.
and I know I cannot lead better, others better than I lead myself. And I
Mm,
know that's taking, you said, be 100% responsible, take 100% responsibility, you said,
mm, mm,
and be hyper realistic about where you truly are
mm,
so that you can move forward. This has really
mm.
spoken that to me.
Yeah.
Now, you just mentioned that you offer a course. How do
Mm.
people access that?
So um, I offer direct one-on-one coaching.
Okay.
And often this is when people get in touch with me directly, and we set up a place to meet and have a conversation about what they need, do an assessment of whether they have an income problem or whether they have an expense problem or they have an investing problem. Because often, you know, people think they have one problem or the other.
Mm,
Some people can keep money. Some people just need to make more money because let's face it, sometimes there are limits to how much you can save. There are limits to how much you can be careful with your money. So different people require different types of consultation and help. But usually, people reach out to me via Twitter.
mhm.
It's the only platform that I am on. So
Wonderful.
usually people reach out to me via Twitter. I go by at S Ndandala.
Mhm.
Send me a message in my inbox, and then we can arrange for a conversation. Um, I would like to dial in a little bit more on this idea of hyperrealism. It's important for people to realize that whilst we feel like we are a part of a community or a group or a clique, personal finance is so personal that
Mhm.
you don't really know who the person next to you is financially, right? People could be in debt. People could be struggling really badly, or people could be doing really well, but you wouldn't know because money is just like that. Our ability to conceal the affairs that we have financially are quite impressive.
Mm,
That tells us two things. That tells us that it's very dangerous to compare yourself to other people.
Yeah.
And it also tells us that just because people look like they are okay doesn't mean that they are
Yeah.
really. And you see this. One of the saddest times is when people get sick and the family has to take care of an elderly person or somebody who's struggling financially, and then here in Tanzania, a family has to come together, do a michango, try and generate some money to take care of the sick person. And that's when it's kind of revealed that, okay, so we actually don't have those resources,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Or somebody has an emergency that needs taken care of, or there's an accident, or and I say that because I think it's important for people to start thinking about taking care of emergencies as a family. Some years back, I sat down with my brothers. I'm the first of three brothers,
mm,
and I said, "Look, guys, it's three of us. I don't want any surprises. Let's set up a family fund
mm,
because if something happens, I don't want us to struggle.
yeah.
We're okay now. Each one can sort of manage, but let's set up something
Mm,
so that in good times we enjoy in peace, but also at times when it's raining, we are covered. And believe me, it's gonna rain.
mm,
It's gonna rain on everyone,
mm,
right? So it's very important to have these conversations with people that are close to you, friends who are dear to you, to just have this conversation.
mm,
So it goes back to this personalization of your planning and your thinking, and knowing that really, just because you have these friends or you're part of this family that looks well doesn't mean that you individually are well, and you need to be thinking very strategically about that. And this idea of comparison
yeah.
is also quite dangerous. And the best way I can explain it is, because we compare ourselves, it's very easy to change goalposts for ourselves. Imagine you got your dream car.
Mm-hmm,
You got your dream Bentley, but you also got your dream chauffeur,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
And then you realize that all of your friends also have Bentleys and they're also chauffeur driven,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
Your levels of happiness and joy are different
mm,
from when it's just you with a Bentley
mm,
and a chauffeur driven car
mm,
and a chauffeur driven Bentley. But imagine if you have your chauffeur driven Bentley,
mm,
but everyone has a better car,
mm,
whatever better it is,
mm,
right? Whatever that is better than Bentley, everyone has it.
mm,
Suddenly, your levels of happiness are not necessarily the same. You have what you need, right? But you're always comparing yourself to what the rest of the people have.
mm.
So often, we have what we need, but we are always making reference to the people around us. So one has to ask themselves, what was I praying for? Because a lot of times we actually have what we were praying
Yeah.
for, but we're comparing it to others, and it's a forever changing goalpost. It's something that keeps moving and moving and moving. That's why they call it a rat race, or
Yeah.
whatever race it is.
Yeah.
So part of being responsible, honest, personalizing this journey is saying, this is my goal and it's fixed. I don't care what Modesta has.
Mm, mm,
My dream is a Toyota VX,
mm,
and I get it. I'm not worried about Modesta's Bentley
and
or
chauffeur,
this person's Porsche.
Samuel. I'll have a chauffeur.
Sorry, a chauffeur. Yeah, I'm not worrying about the chauffeur, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is this idea of personalizing your journey means that you run away from constant comparison.
This is so profound. Because sometimes we say life happens, it's life happens. I mean, life does happen, like you said, rain will come, rain will fall. But some of life happening is, like you just said, like a planning, but also
Mhm.
comparison. And in this case, not just moving your goalposts because of other people's, but sometimes moving them because of accommodating other people, because of the pressures of
Mhm.
being there. And I
Yeah.
and now that we're speaking to this purpose-driven leader that realizes, look, I need to look at what it means to be wealthy differently and what that looks
Mm,
like, to put
mm,
in the structures for myself so I can build generational wealth. How
mm,
can you help people? And I think a lot of people have this syndrome, who feel bad for being in leadership, feel bad for having. Either like I owe it to other people to do, even if I'm going to go over and above what
mm,
I had purposed to
mhm,
give or purposed to spend,
mm,
or yeah, either they feel bad, or they want to show off, like,
mm.
like, how can
Yeah.
somebody like me not have this?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I think feeling that, you know feeling some feeling some guilt about having the means, it's probably an indication of something that somebody needs to really dig deep into, to understand why would one be uncomfortable with abundance, for example, because that's in some ways that's the natural order of things. We serve a God who's going to bless us
Mhm.
exceedingly and abundantly above, right? um I also, the feeling of guilt because you're blessed, particularly when others are not maybe blessed to the level that you are, is natural. I think it shows kind of servant leadership.
Mhm.
I,
I would say
I,
just compassion, and that's
compassion.
not.
That's
Yeah.
compassion, right? When you're helping, this is, I think George Clayson said this. George Clayson, he wrote a really nice fable called "The Richest Man in Babylon,"
Mm,
and it says, when you're helping your neighbor, do it in a way that doesn't shift their burden onto you.
wow.
It's like borrowing money to help a friend because they are in debt, so you borrow to pay their debt, so you become in debt.
Yeah.
And then that's not how you are. I mean, you have to be strong enough to help others. So if helping others weakens you, that defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
And you don't help the poor by becoming one of them. You help the poor by generating the resources first, and then trying to pull as many people as possible. Now, this is very tricky. They call it black tax, right?
Mm,
This is very tricky because some of us who come from families that are very communal, and you don't leave anyone behind.
mm,
It's very easy to be consumed with the needs of everyone else.
mm.
But I gotta tell you what Jesus said. You remember that story um, of a woman with the alabaster? I think it's the woman with the alabaster
Yeah,
box.
yeah.
She comes, she pours the perfume on Jesus' feet, and what do the Pharisees say? They say, "Look, that's a very expensive perfume.
Yeah.
If you sell that, imagine how many people
You'd
you're gonna help."
Yeah.
Right? And Jesus actually quotes Moses, because that's also in Deuteronomy. And Jesus said, "The poor you'll always have with you."
Mm,
Right?
mm,
And I don't think Jesus meant don't help the poor.
mm,
I think Jesus was saying, look, if you are preoccupied with helping every poor person,
mm.
you will get to a point where you also become poor,
Yeah.
because you've lost track of what you need to do to help people,
Yeah.
right? So I think there needs to be a balance, and this is where the budget will come in.
Yeah.
So the way I do it, on a month to month, week to week, I am very deliberate about setting aside a portion of the budget which I call charity and social affairs.
Mm, mm, mm.
And when that budget is done, unfortunately, I can't do any more.
Yeah.
But the other thing is to train people. I think as leaders, naturally, we have that deep desire to empower people,
Yeah.
right? To lift people up. And one of the ways to do it is to equip people with the skills, with the knowledge
Mm,
about personal finance.
mm,
So I recruit at Deloitte. I recruit made an upwards of 10, 20 people every year.
mm.
And yes, there's a technical training. Yes, there is, how this is how you audit, this is how you do tax, this is how you do that. But I set one specific training session for every, every time I have new joiners come in, and I say, look, everything here is important, but remember, you're also here to earn money,
Mm,
and I want you to start investing.
mm.
And if you need help with investing, the money that you're generating, let me know. You need to learn how to budget. You need to learn how to start very early. Because the good news is, if you get a young person who's coming out of college or is in high school, and you teach him the power of compounding,
Mm.
and they're 20, they're 21, they're 22, 23, it's almost automatic if they invest consistently, but that in 20 years they're going to be millionaires.
Yeah.
That the thing is, they don't see it that way. They don't see what they feel as a little salary, making that big an impact. But if you start imparting in them that knowledge and teaching them and showing them that, look, you can do this, you can do that, you can have a good time, but you can set aside 10, 20% of your money and invest, and you can see it grow. It makes a big difference.
That is so good. That is so necessary. And this takes us back to our homes. This is that living to impart, right? Uh the whole the caring about the whole person as a leader. And having that impact,
Mm,
and instilling those values and those lessons.
mm,
Like I, like you,
mm,
also have a budget. My husband and I, we have a budget, and
mm,
2 months ago, that budget, we had a sudden death in the family, and
mm,
so that budget went toward that. But I'd
mm,
also agreed to give toward a wedding, and I had to
mm.
let the person know, I am so sorry. Uh,
Yeah.
this is, we usually have a budget, and we
Mm,
had this emergency, and that had to go toward that. And of course,
mm,
they understood, and I'm grateful. At least they gave the impression that they understood.
mm.
And the more you practice, the
Yeah.
more you feel comfortable, and the more people understand, because they know your heart, they know you.
If you don't practice it, it doesn't help anyone, because you end up being very resentful of
Yes.
the other person and yourself
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's a practice.
Yeah.
It's a practice. And usually people come around,
Yeah. Yeah.
they get on board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if initially they may react badly, but how other
Yeah.
people react is their concern. You do
Mm-hmm.
well by people. You live, you purpose what your life is
Mm,
about and where you're going, and you live according to plan. Somebody once
mm,
told me, Modesta, you are stealing from your children's future, this
mm.
giving and being a martyr. It's like, Christ. Right?
Wow.
Let people there's some lessons people will learn by growing up. Stop enabling cycles that
Yeah.
people should by now have broken. And as you're
Yeah.
doing that, because I remember in one instance, I literally took from my children's savings to give to somebody
Wow.
else because I felt bad for them.
Mm,
And
mm,
I don't know what I was doing on my phone, because I have these different accounts
mm,
together, and one of the children saw that in their
mm,
account as I was scrolling. So I think they were behind me in the car, and I heard
mm.
them whisper to her sister, like, I just saw her accounts. I remember the last time, because I speak to them, the last time they were
Yeah.
this, and I had made that withdrawal to help another
Mm,
family just.
mm,
So
mm,
we will get there. But
mm,
first, I think in finance, as with all other areas of leadership, it's only when you are able to steward yourself well, that you can then take from that and build
Hmm.
from that to be able to support
Yeah.
others as well. Yeah. You know what? I think I will need to have you back on this, because you speaking about the process has made me think about, you feel more comfortable talking about something you live yourself, that, you like, you as a leader, you can't impart things on people where you feel like I live completely incongruent to this. Like I'm just doing this because I'm their leader, but I'm on the same boat. There's something about having gone through the process and learned, and you're speaking from a place of experience and conviction, than, theory, or just because I'm in this position and, you come to me as a source, then I have to pretend to be a credible source. Um, so I'd like, I don't know if we're gonna couch it around finances, but, about leadership, and having the courage and the conviction of the things that you're leading people in. But that's the process helps you with that as well. It refines you, and you when you stand and you're speaking or you're helping, it comes from a place of great authenticity. Not that you weren't being real or genuine, but this comes from a place of being tried, and saying these things I speak of, I have proven them, you know, and they will benefit you. Simon, this has been phenomenal for me. I think absolutely everything you have shared and you have challenged us with, and even encouraged us on, is really going to be golden to our listeners. Kwa hiyo asante sana, for your time, and for uh, digging deep and reaching down to unearth all of these nuggets for us.
All right. Asante sana, Modesta. I honor what you do. I can feel your passion and drive. I think your desire to help people is reverberating,
I'm grateful.
um, everywhere. I've followed you for years, and some of my friends are people who you have coached and trained and molded. So
I'm grateful.
I honor what you do, and really respect the work that you're doing, and you keep doing it. I'm enjoying the podcast. I have to tell you, my favorite one is I think the one you did with Imelda Momanga.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
The way, I think, there was just a lot of raw sort of vulnerability there, and compassion, and it was just very real. So yeah, keep up the great work. We'll keep looking and watching as your reach and your impact is even magnified. So I'm praying for you that
I'm grateful.
this becomes an amazing 2024
I am
for
grateful.
yourself and your family.
I am grateful, and to you as well. Thank you for joining us on the Modesta Mahiga 360 Leadership Podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast and share this episode to add value to another leader. Remember, prioritize your 360 leadership development, because you can only lead others as well as you lead yourself. If you'd like to learn more about how we can support you with your leadership development, connect with us on modestamahiga.com. Have a great one. Bye.